This story is for everyone. My name is Laura, and I write musicals. Let's get right into it. I live in a part of the city of Chicago called Andersonville. It is located on the north side of the city, almost but not quite at the city limits. And if you walked around, you might forget you were in a city proper. There are gardens and graveyards, small shops and restaurants, 100 little coffee places, and overlooking them all, a bright blue and yellow water tower painted like the Swedish flag. This used to be the Swedish neighborhood of Chicago. You might think then that if any magical creatures lived here, they would be trolls. Maybe there are some trolls hiding around, waiting for the sun to set before they come out so they don't turn to stone. I don't know. I've never met one. No, the creature that I want to tell you about is the Andersonville Pooka and how it got its tail. A Pooka is a mischievous fairy beast, a shapeshifter who loves to trick and beguile humans. Sometimes they come in the form of a dark horse and whisk you away on a terrifying ride across the country. Sometimes they look like a goat and eat all of your least edible things, rubber tires and plastic dolls and even shiny phones, just to aggravate you. This Pooka, living in the city as he does, avoids large forms. He sometimes pops up as a fox, more often as a hairy rat. But to tell the truth, he can be a bit lazy, and so most often he hangs around in his own form, a little furry man with bright yellow eyes and a face like a raccoon's, though all dark, no little mask. And it's important to note that until last year, he had no tail at all. There is a bar in Andersonville called Simon's Tavern. You'll know it by the neon sign out front, a giant fish wearing a Viking helmet and holding a goblet. Really. Simon's is known for glögg, a spiced red wine drink, which they sell hot in the winter and as a smoothie in the summer. Simon's is also famously haunted. However, what most people don't know is that Simon's Tavern is not home to ghosts. Instead, it is home to Andersonville's own Pooka. How do you know that, I hear you ask me? You don't even go to bars. Well, it's true that I don't seek them out these days, but in my earlier life, I spent many an evening at Simon's with my friends, way even before I lived in walking distance. Sometimes we'd stay up quite late and close the place down. One night, around 2 a.m., and yes, I know how late that is, I saw the bartender set out a small saucer of cream in the back corner of the bar. I was curious because some bars allowed dogs, but I hadn't seen any cats around, nor had I ever started sneezing in Simon's, and you know how allergic I am to cats. Imagine my surprise then when a little panel in the wall behind the bar popped open and a small, dark, hairy arm reached out. I fell right off my stool. The noise of my fall startled the bartender, who came to see if I was all right. It must have interested the creature as well, because the next thing I knew, his hairy face stared down at me. As he saw me sprawled on the floor, he broke into cackles of laughter, scaring me further until I'd backed up entirely into the wall. Well, after that we had to be properly introduced, and thus began our acquaintance. Now, just because a creature lives somewhere doesn't mean that's the only place to find him, or it didn't until recently. Once we'd met, I encountered the Pooka all over Andersonville, sneaking handfuls of jelly beans at Candy Alley, stealing French fries at Hopleaf, mixing books out of alphabetical order at Women and Children First Bookstore. Like most fairy creatures, Pookas are curious. Mix that curiosity with mischief, and you never know what will happen. Before we continue, a note. Remember that I told you that Pooka are shapeshifters. Well, I don't know the mechanics behind these things, but it seems that means that at all times their bodies are just a little bit fluid, a touch malleable. Things aren't quite as fixed in place as they would be for you or me. So, we'll jump forward a few years to last summer. Andersonville has a big summer festival called Midsommar Fest. No horror movies here, just a neighborhood festival. The Swedish American Museum puts up a flower display, and for a donation of $5, you can create your own flower crown. There are booths for local restaurants, artisans, and artists, multiple stages with musicians playing every hour, freely flowing beer and glögg, and above all, lots to see. For a long weekend, several blocks of Clark Street closed down to set up for this festival. And where is the epicenter but right in front of Simon's Tavern? Now, I can't rightfully say how long our Pooka has lived at Simon's, but I know Midsommar Fest has happened annually since at least 1969. Last summer certainly wasn't the Pooka's first chance to attend. In fact, I'm sure I've seen him scuttling around the festival in rat form in years gone by, stealing a funnel cake here, knocking over a pale ale there. What I suspect is that this lazy Pooka, and you will remember that he is lazy, became too confident by half. After years of attending in animal form, I believe he thought he could get away with not transforming at all. Most of the adults at the festival would be drinking anyway, and if a clever child caught a glimpse of him, their parents would be sure to explain it away as an overactive imagination. Besides, I can attest that the Swedish folk dance that year was particularly loud and energetic. I think he couldn't resist checking it out, and couldn't be bothered to transform first. Oh no, but here I've been blabbering away and I've run out of time. Well, okay. Watch this spot, and tomorrow I will continue with the story of how the Andersonville Pooka got its tail.